My name is Minnie, and at 65 years old, I finally bought my dream house after my husband Frank passed away 2 years ago. I saved for decades as a teacher to afford this beautiful historic home. What I never expected was to discover my son Daniel giving a tour of my house to his wife, mother-in-law, and friend. I stood frozen in the doorway as I heard him say, "We already decided." I felt my heart sink to my stomach. Before I continue my story, let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe if you have ever had a family member try to make decisions about your property without permission. After 40 years in the classroom, teaching 3rd grade, I had finally managed to set aside a comfortable nest egg. Frank and I were always careful with money. We lived in the same modest 3-bedroom ranch house for over 35 years, driving our cars until they practically fell apart and putting away as much as we could for retirement. Frank was an accountant who practiced what he preached about financial responsibility. We had 3 children together. Daniel, our eldest, at 42, works in financial services and has always seemed to be the most stable and responsible of our children. Jessica is our middle child at 38, a free spirit who works as a graphic designer and travels whenever possible. Michael, our youngest at 35, is still finding his way, jumping between careers and relationships. Daniel married Natalie 15 years ago, and they have 2 teenagers, Kyle, who is 16, and Emma, who is 14. They live in a nice suburban neighborhood about 20 minutes from my old house in what Daniel always described as a starter home that they had outgrown. Over the past year, he had been making more and more comments about needing more space for his family. When Frank was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, everything changed. The disease moved quickly, and within 8 months, I found myself alone for the first time in 43 years. The house that had been our home for decades suddenly felt empty, filled with memories that were both comforting and painful. After a year of grief counseling and slowly finding my footing again, I made a decision. I needed a fresh start in a new place that was truly mine. The kids were concerned about me making such a big change, especially Daniel, who suggested I consider downsizing to an apartment complex for seniors. "Mom, you do not need all this space," he would say during his weekly visits. "Think about how much easier life would be in a place where everything is taken care of for you." But I knew what I wanted. I had spent my entire adult life compromising and considering everyone else's needs. This decision would be mine alone. I began house hunting in secret. I told the children I was taking an extended trip to visit my sister in Arizona, but instead, I spent 3 weeks viewing properties. That is when I found it, a gorgeous craftsman-style home built in the 1920s. It had been lovingly maintained with many original features intact. 3 bedrooms, a sunroom that would be perfect for my plants, a spacious kitchen, and most importantly, a large fenced backyard where my grandchildren could play when they visited. The moment I walked in, I knew it was mine. I made an offer that day, using the money from Frank's life insurance policy and our retirement savings. The closing was quick, and suddenly I was a homeowner again. But I decided to keep it a secret from my children until the renovations were complete. I imagined their surprise when I would finally reveal my new home. Daniel would see that I was capable of making good decisions for myself. Jessica would love the character and charm of the old house. Michael would appreciate the guest room where he could stay when he was between apartments. The house needed some updating, a new kitchen bathroom, renovations, and fresh paint throughout. I decided to make these changes before telling anyone about my purchase. I wanted it to be perfect when I finally showed it to my family. As I walked through the empty rooms, planning where my furniture would go and what colors to paint the walls, I felt a sense of excitement I had not experienced in years. This house represented a new chapter in my life, one where I was the author of my own story. Little did I know that someone else was already writing a different ending. The renovation process became my new purpose. Each morning, I would arrive at the house early to meet with contractors, choose materials, and make decisions about every detail of my new home. After decades of compromising with Frank and considering the children's needs, it was liberating to make choices based solely on my own preferences. I chose a soft sage green for the living room walls, a color Frank had always vetoed as too feminine. The master bathroom would have a large soaking tub, something I had always wanted but never had. The kitchen would be modernized with new appliances, but would keep the charming original cabinets that I had fallen in love with. I spent hours at home, improvement stores, selecting just the right fixtures, tiles, and hardware. As the renovations progressed, I felt myself growing more attached to the house and the neighborhood. The area was filled with tree-lined streets and neighbors who actually said hello when they saw you. There was a small park within walking distance and several nice restaurants nearby. It was close enough to my old neighborhood that visiting the children would not be difficult, but far enough away to feel like a true, fresh start. I began making friends with some of the neighbors who were curious about the work being done on the house. Martha, an 80-year-old widow who lived next door, would bring me cookies and ask about the progress. Tom and Linda, across the street, invited me to their backyard barbecue, where I met several other neighbors. "We were wondering who bought the Johnston place," Martha said during one of her visits. "It is nice to see someone bringing life back to it." I did not tell them I was keeping the house a secret from my family. That seemed too complicated to explain. Instead, I simply said I was excited to move in once the renovations were complete. Inside the house, I created spaces that reflected my personality and interests. The sunroom would be my reading nook, with a comfortable chair, good lighting, and bookshelves for my extensive collection of mysteries. One of the bedrooms would be set up for the grandchildren, with twin beds and a toy chest filled with games and activities for when they visited. The backyard became another project. I hired a landscaper to create a garden with easy-to-maintain perennials and a small patio where I could have morning coffee. There would be a swing set for the grandkids and plenty of open space for them to run around. As the weeks passed, I found myself growing more confident in my decisions. I no longer second-guessed my choices or worried about what others would think. This was my house, and for the first time in my adult life, I was creating a space that was entirely mine. During this time, Daniel's comments about my living situation became more frequent. He would call or visit my apartment and inevitably bring up the subject of senior living. "I found a really nice retirement community, Mom," he said during one visit. "They have activities, dining facilities, and even a small clinic on site. I think you should consider it." "I am happy where I am for now," I would respond, hiding my secret with a smile. "But it is not practical for you to live alone in such a big place," he persisted. "What if you fall? What if there is an emergency?" His concern seemed genuine, and I appreciated his care for my well-being. But there was something in his tone that occasionally made me uneasy, something that felt less like concern and more like pressure. Jessica and Michael were less involved in my day-to-day life. Jessica lived an hour away and was busy with her design business. Michael was currently working in another state. They called regularly, but did not seem as invested in my living arrangements as Daniel was. As the renovation neared completion, I began planning how I would reveal my secret to the family. I decided to host a dinner at my apartment and then surprise them with a drive to the new house. I could almost picture their faces when I pulled into the driveway and handed out keys to each of them, explaining that while this was my home, there would always be room for them to visit. The contractors promised the house would be finished by the end of the month. All the major work was done and only final touches remained: painting touch-ups, installing light fixtures, and cleaning. I had already begun secretly moving some of my smaller possessions into the house, storing them in closets and cabinets. My excitement grew each day as I imagined my new life in this house. It represented not just a change of scenery, but a transformation of who I was, a woman capable of making bold decisions and creating her own happiness. The house was just days away from being ready when everything changed. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I decided to stop by the house to check on the final details of the renovation. The painters had promised to finish touching up the trim in the living room, and I wanted to make sure they had matched the color correctly. I had not scheduled a meeting with any of the contractors, so I was not expected. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked in front. For a moment, I thought perhaps one of the workers had brought a personal vehicle instead of their company truck. But something felt wrong. The car was too nice, a late-model luxury sedan that seemed out of place. I approached the house quietly, my curiosity turning to confusion when I heard voices inside. The front door was unlocked, and I gently pushed it open, careful not to make a sound. That is when I heard my son's voice echoing from the kitchen. "The cabinets are a bit outdated, but we can replace those easily," Daniel was saying. "I am thinking something more modern, maybe white, with a granite countertop." I froze in the entryway, my hand still on the doorknob. How did Daniel know about the house? Why was he here? And who was he talking to? Rather than announcing my presence, I quietly stepped behind the living room wall, my heart pounding in my chest. From my hiding spot, I could hear everything, but remained out of sight. "The living room is a good size," came a woman's voice that I recognized as Natalie Daniel's wife. "But that wall color would have to go. It is too dark and depressing. And this kitchen is so closed off," said another female voice I did not recognize right away. "These old houses always have such poor flow. You will want to open it up completely." I realized it was Patricia, Natalie's mother. I had only met her a handful of times at family events, but her critical tone was unmistakable. "The master bedroom upstairs is perfect for us," Daniel continued as their footsteps moved above me. "Kyle can take the bedroom at the end of the hall, and Emma can have the one with the window seat." I felt like I couldn't breathe. They were planning to move into my house that they did not even know I owned. "What about your mother?" asked a fourth voice, who I later realized was Natalie's friend Susan. "Does she know about your plans for her house?" There was a pause, and I held my breath, waiting for Daniel's response. "Mom does not need to worry about any of this," he said dismissively. "We have already decided this is the best solution for everyone. She will be much happier in a senior apartment where everything is taken care of. This house is too much for her to maintain at her age." We already decided. Those 3 words hit me like a physical blow. I had to press my hand against the wall to steady myself. "But how are you going to get her to agree?" Susan pressed. "It sounds like you are making decisions without her input." "I know how to handle my mother," Daniel said, with a confidence that sent a chill down my spine. "She trusts me to make the right choices. I have been managing her finances for years, and she relies on my guidance. That was a lie. I had never given Daniel control of my finances. Yes, he had helped me understand some investment options after Frank died, but I made all decisions myself and had my own financial advisor. The house has good bones, Patricia was saying as they came back downstairs. But you will need to budget for significant updates. These old places are money pits. The real estate market in this neighborhood is hot right now, Daniel replied. Even with the renovations, we are getting a steal. And since Mom does not need the money from selling her current house, we can take our time fixing this one up exactly the way we want it. I felt sick to my stomach. Daniel was acting as if my current house and this new one were both his to dispose of as he pleased. I wanted to step out and confront him, to demand an explanation for this betrayal, but something held me back. A lifetime of avoiding conflict, perhaps, or the shock that paralyzed my limbs. When are you planning to tell your mother about all this? Susan asked. She seemed to be the only one with any concern for my feelings in this situation. After we close on the sale of her current house, Daniel said. I have already spoken with a realtor about listing it next month. By then, I will have found the perfect senior community for her, and we can present it as a done deal. It will be easier for her that way. She will resist, Natalie said. You know how stubborn she can be. She will come around, Daniel assured her. She always does, and it is for her own good. She cannot keep living in a house that size at her age. It is not safe. I heard them moving toward the front door, and I pressed myself further into the shadows, hardly daring to breathe. I cannot wait to start decorating, Natalie said as they stepped onto the porch. This place has so much potential. Let's grab lunch and discuss the renovation budget, Daniel suggested. I want to start work as soon as possible. I heard the door close, and then the sound of their car starting and driving away. Only when they were gone did I allow myself to move my legs, trembling so badly I had to sit down on the newly finished hardwood floors. In the empty house that I had lovingly prepared as my new home, I sat alone, feeling violated and betrayed by the person I trusted most in the world. After they left, I remained sitting on the floor for what felt like hours, too stunned to move or even cry. The beautiful house that had represented my fresh start now felt tainted by their presence and plans. Every room they had walked through, every wall they had evaluated for changes, every space they had mentally claimed for themselves, it all felt different now. When I finally managed to stand, I walked through the house as if seeing it for the first time. In the kitchen, I could almost hear Daniel and Natalie discussing replacing the cabinets I had carefully preserved and restored. In the living room, I remembered Natalie's comment about the wall color being too dark and depressing, the sage green that had made me feel so peaceful and at home. Upstairs in the master bedroom that Daniel had claimed would be perfect for them, I sat on the window seat and finally allowed the tears to come. Not just tears of hurt and betrayal, but of anger, of fierce, protective anger I had not felt since my children were small and someone had threatened their well-being. This was my house, my new beginning, my choice, and my own son had tried to take it from me before I had even moved in. As the shock began to wear off, I started to analyze every recent interaction with Daniel with new eyes. His increasing concern about my living situation, his suggestions about senior communities, his offers to help with my finances, all of it now seemed calculated rather than caring. That evening, my phone rang. It was Jessica. "Mom, I just wanted to check in on you," she said when I answered. "Daniel mentioned you might be struggling a bit lately." "Struggling?" I asked immediately, on alert. "What did he tell you?" There was a pause. "Just that you seemed a bit confused sometimes, that you forgot some important appointments and misplaced things. He is concerned, that is all." The betrayal deepened. Daniel was laying groundwork, creating a narrative of cognitive decline to justify taking control of my life and property. "Jessica, I am perfectly fine," I said firmly. "I have not missed any appointments or been confused about anything." "That is what I thought," she said, sounding relieved. "Daniel has been acting weird lately, very controlling when it comes to you. I told him he needs to back off, but he insists he is just looking out for your best interests." After we hung up, I called Michael, who confirmed that Daniel had shared similar concerns with him. "He said you might need assisted living soon," Michael told me. "I thought it seemed extreme, but he said he has been spending more time with you and noticed signs of decline." My blood boiled at this calculated manipulation. Daniel was not just planning to take my new house, but was actively working to convince the entire family that I was incapable of independent living. Over the next few days, I did some investigating of my own. A careful review of Daniel's recent behavior revealed a pattern I had missed. His increased visits coincided with his mounting financial pressures. He had hinted at work troubles and commented about the high cost of college for Kyle, who would be starting in 2 years. With a sick feeling in my stomach, I called my bank and confirmed that there had been no unauthorized access to my accounts. I also checked with my financial advisor, who reassured me that my investments were secure. At least Daniel had not yet attempted to access my money directly. I also discovered through casual conversations with Kyle during a dinner at their house that Daniel and Natalie had been struggling financially. Kyle mentioned being told he might need to consider community college rather than the prestigious universities he had been targeting. Dad said the market has been tough on everyone. Kyle told me and was aware of the significance of this revelation. A call from a local realtor confirmed my worst fears. The woman had mistaken me for Natalie when I answered my phone. "Mrs. Wilson, I just wanted to follow up on our conversation about listing your mother-in-law's home," she said. "Your husband mentioned you would be making some decisions this week." I played along, and the realtor revealed that Daniel had consulted her about selling my current house, claiming that his elderly mother would be moving to assisted living. He had even brought her by to evaluate the property while I was supposedly at a doctor's appointment, a visit I had no knowledge of. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture of desperation and deception that broke my heart. My son, who I had always trusted implicitly, was attempting to solve his financial problems by appropriating my property and manipulating me into a living situation I did not want or need. That night, Michael called, concerned about what he described as my erratic behavior after I had apparently missed a family dinner I knew nothing about. "Daniel said you agreed to come, but then claimed you were never invited when he called to check on you," Michael said. "Mom, is everything okay?" I realized then the full extent of Daniel's manipulation. He was gaslighting me to my own children, creating situations that made me appear confused or forgetful. It was a sophisticated and cruel strategy designed to undermine my credibility when I inevitably protested his plans. Sitting alone in my apartment, surrounded by the small boxes I had been packing for my secret move, I felt more isolated than I had since Frank's death. But beneath the hurt and betrayal, a steely determination was forming. I would not be manipulated or controlled. I would not be pushed aside or treated as incapable. This house, my house, had become more than just a property. It was now a symbol of my autonomy, and I would fight to protect it. The next morning, I called my attorney, Robert Jenkins, who had handled Frank's estate and had been our family lawyer for 20 years. I explained the situation and asked for his advice on protecting my assets and establishing clear boundaries. "Minnie, I am glad you came to me with this," Robert said, after hearing the whole story. "What Daniel is doing could potentially constitute elder abuse if he is attempting to gain control of your assets through deception." The term elder abuse hit me hard. It seemed impossible that my own son would cross such a line, but the evidence was mounting. Robert helped me put together a comprehensive plan to document my cognitive health, financial independence, and legal ownership of both properties. First, I scheduled an appointment with my doctor for a complete cognitive assessment, which showed no signs of impairment. I obtained official documentation of these results to counter any claims Daniel might make about my mental capacity. Next, I gathered all my financial records, including bank statements, investment portfolios, and the paperwork for the new house purchase. Robert helped me create a clear paper trail showing my financial stability and independence. We should also consider recording any conversations where Daniel reveals his plans, Robert suggested. New York is a one-party consent state, so you can legally record conversations you are part of without informing the other participants. I felt uncomfortable about recording my own son, but I needed evidence of his deception. The next time Daniel called to check in, I recorded our conversation carefully, steering it toward the topic of my living situation. "I was thinking more about those senior communities you mentioned," I said, keeping my voice casual. "What exactly do you have in mind?" "I found a really nice place about 20 minutes from our house," he replied, eager to pursue what he thought was an opening. "They have small apartments, but lots of activities and care options as you need them. And the best part is you would not have to worry about maintaining a big house anymore." "What would happen to my current house?" I asked. "We would sell it, of course," he said smoothly. "The market is great right now, and the proceeds would help pay for the senior community. It makes the most financial sense." "And who would handle the sale?" I pressed. "I would take care of everything, Mom. You would not have to worry about a thing. That is what I am here for." The conversation confirmed what I already knew. He was planning to control the sale of my house and the proceeds from it all under the guise of caring for me. As painful as this investigation was, it also revealed something I had not known about Daniel's personal situation. Through conversations with Jessica, who had become concerned about her brother's behavior, I learned that Daniel had made some poor investment decisions in recent years and might be in significant debt. "Natalie mentioned they had to refinance their house last year," Jessica told me. "And Kyle told Emma that his college fund was gone. Something is definitely going on with their finances." This explained the desperation behind Daniel's schemes. He was not just being controlling, he was trying to solve his own financial problems by appropriating my assets. The final piece of evidence came unexpectedly. I had installed security cameras at the new house as part of the renovation, a standard safety measure that now proved invaluable. Reviewing the footage from the past month, I discovered that Daniel had visited the property multiple times, once with a different realtor who appeared to be assessing its value. During one recorded visit, I could clearly hear him saying, "Once my mother moves to assisted living, we will be taking over this property. I just need to know what kind of equity we can access through refinancing." With this evidence in hand, I consulted with Robert again. He advised me to change the locks at both properties immediately and to prepare for a family meeting where I would confront Daniel with what I knew. "You need to establish clear boundaries," Robert said, "and the rest of the family should know what has been happening so they can support you and understand why you are taking these steps." I changed the locks at the new house and installed additional security measures. I also asked Jessica and Michael to meet me without Daniel so I could explain some of what I had discovered. I did not share everything, wanting to give Daniel a chance to explain himself to his siblings directly, but I made it clear that he had been misrepresenting my mental and financial state to them. "I cannot believe he would do that," Michael said, clearly shocked. "He always seemed like the responsible one. People do desperate things when they are in financial trouble." Jessica said, more pragmatic, "But that does not make it right. With my legal position secure and my other children informed, I felt ready to confront Daniel." The family dinner I had originally planned as a joyful house reveal would now serve a different purpose, establishing boundaries and addressing betrayal. As difficult as this process was, I found myself growing stronger through it. Each step I took to protect myself and my property reinforced my confidence in my own judgment and capabilities. The house that Daniel had tried to claim now felt even more precious to me as I fought to defend it. The stage was set for a confrontation that would forever change our family dynamics. The day of the family gathering arrived with a heaviness I had never anticipated when I first planned to reveal my new home. Instead of the joyful surprise I had imagined, I was preparing for a difficult confrontation that might permanently alter my relationship with my eldest son. I had invited everyone to my apartment for what they thought would be a simple family dinner. Daniel arrived with Natalie and their children, seeming relaxed and unaware of what was coming. Jessica and Michael were there with their partners, already informed about some of what had been happening, but unsure of exactly how the evening would unfold. We ate dinner with strained conversation, the younger grandchildren oblivious to the tension, while the adults navigated careful small talk. After dessert was served, I stood up and made my announcement. "I have a surprise for everyone," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I have purchased a new house, and I would like to take you all to see it." The reaction was immediate. Jessica and Michael, who knew something was coming, but not the details, looked surprised and excited. Kyle and Emma perked up with interest, but it was Daniel's face that I watched most carefully, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm in an instant. "A new house," he said, his voice tight. "Mom, we have discussed this. You do not need a bigger place at your age. It makes no sense financially." "Actually, it makes perfect sense for me," I replied calmly. "And I am excited to show it to all of you." "When did you do this?" Natalie asked, glancing nervously at Daniel. "It seems like a big decision to make without family input." "I made the decision several months ago," I said. "The house has been undergoing renovations, and it is finally ready. I thought it would be a nice surprise." Daniel tried several more times to discourage the visit, suggesting it was too late in the evening or that we should discuss this major decision first. But the rest of the family was already gathering coats and expressing excitement about seeing the property. "Let's all go in separate cars," I suggested. "That way, no one has to drive back here if they need to head home after." This arrangement ensured that Daniel could not leave abruptly when we arrived, a possibility I had considered, given what he would soon realize. As our small caravan pulled up to the Craftsman house, I watched the family's reactions through my rearview mirror, Jessica immediately gushed about the style and character of the home. Michael whistled appreciatively. Kyle and Emma ran up to examine the front porch swing. Daniel and Natalie remained in their car for several long moments, and I could see them having an intense conversation. Finally, they emerged, their faces carefully composed. "This is the Johnston place," Daniel said as he approached me. "How did you even know it was for sale?" "I have my ways," I replied, unlocking the front door with my key and inviting everyone inside. The family streamed in, exclaiming over the beautiful woodwork, the updated kitchen, and the charming original features I had preserved. Jessica immediately loved the sage green living room walls that Natalie had criticized. Michael appreciated the backyard and its potential for family gatherings. "Grandma, is this room for us?" Emma asked, discovering the bedroom I had prepared, with twin beds and a toy chest. "Yes, sweetheart. That is for when you and Kyle visit," I confirmed, watching Daniel's face grow increasingly pale. As the family explored the house, I asked Daniel and Natalie to join me in the kitchen. Once we were alone, I laid my cards on the table. "I know you have been here before," I said quietly. "I know you have been planning to take this house for yourselves." The color drained from Natalie's face, but Daniel attempted to maintain his composure. "Mom, I do not know what you are talking about," he started, but I cut him off. "I was here, Daniel. I heard everything. I heard you giving a tour to Natalie, Patricia, and Susan. I heard you say, 'We already decided.' I heard your plans to move me into a senior apartment and claim this house for your family." For a moment, he seemed ready to continue denying it. Then his shoulders slumped. "How did you find out about this place?" he asked, his voice hollow. "That is not the point," I replied. "The point is that you were making plans to sell my current home and control where I live, all without my knowledge or consent. You have been telling your siblings that I am experiencing cognitive decline. You brought realtors to assess both properties." Natalie looked at Daniel in shock. "You said your mother knew about our plans. You said she had agreed to move to a senior community." Before Daniel could respond, I continued. "I have documentation of my cognitive health from my doctor. I have recordings of our conversations where you reveal your plans. I have security footage of you bringing a realtor here to discuss refinancing a property that does not belong to you." The rest of the family had gathered in the doorway of the kitchen, drawn by the rising tension in our voices. Jessica and Michael looked horrified as they began to understand the full extent of Daniel's deception. "Daniel, tell me this is not true," Michael said, stepping into the kitchen. Daniel looked around at the family, seemingly realizing he could no longer maintain the lie. "You do not understand," he said, his voice breaking. "We are drowning in debt. The investment fund collapsed, and I lost everything. We refinanced our house to the limit, and Kyle's college fund is gone. I was trying to find a solution that would work for everyone." "By lying about Mom's mental state and trying to sell her house?" Jessica asked incredulously. "She does not need all this space," Daniel shouted, gesturing around the kitchen. "It makes perfect sense for her to downsize and for us to use the equity in her properties to help the family." "It is not your decision to make," I said firmly. "These are my properties, my assets, and my choices. You had no right to make these plans or to undermine me to the rest of the family." Daniel's composure finally broke. "What was I supposed to do?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Watch my children lose their future because of my mistakes? I have always been the responsible one, the one who takes care of everyone. The one time I need help, you are all turning against me." "I would have helped you if you had asked," I said quietly. But not like this. Never like this. The room fell silent. Kyle and Emma stood in the doorway, looking confused and upset at seeing their father break down. Natalie had tears streaming down her face, clearly humiliated by the public revelation of their financial troubles and her husband's deception. "I think you should leave now," I said to Daniel and his family. "We all need time to process this." "Mom," Daniel started reaching for my hand. "Not now," I said, pulling away. "I need time." Jessica stepped forward and put her arm around my shoulders. Michael moved to stand beside us, a united front that made clear where their support lay. Daniel looked at his siblings, then at me, before finally nodding. "Come on," he said to Natalie and the children. "Let's go home." As they left the beautiful house I had chosen for my fresh start, felt simultaneously tainted by betrayal and reclaimed by my assertion of boundaries. It had become the site of a painful family fracture, but also the place where I had found the strength to stand up for myself. Jessica and Michael stayed with me that night, helping me process what had happened and assuring me of their support. As painful as the confrontation had been, I knew it was necessary for me to move forward with dignity and autonomy. The weeks following the confrontation were some of the most difficult of my life. The family fracture left a hollow ache in my chest that not even my beautiful new home could ease. Daniel did not call or visit, and I made no attempt to reach out to him either. We both needed space to process what had happened. Jessica and Michael stepped up, visiting me frequently and helping with the final stages of moving into the new house. They brought boxes from my apartment, hung pictures, and arranged furniture, filling the spaces with laughter and support that began the process of reclaiming the home as mine. "This place is perfect for you, Mom," Jessica said as she helped me arrange my book collection in the sunroom. "I can already picture you reading here with your morning coffee." Michael took charge of setting up technology, installing a new smart home system that would allow me to control lights, temperature, and security from my phone. "Now you can tell Daniel you have better tech skills than he does," he joked, trying to lighten the mood. The grandchildren situation was complicated. Kyle and Emma had witnessed enough of the confrontation to know something serious had happened, but not enough to understand the full extent of their father's deception. I missed them terribly and worried about how this rift would affect my relationship with them. 2 weeks after the confrontation, Natalie called me. Her voice was hesitant, laden with embarrassment and regret. "Minnie, I want to apologize," she said. "I had no idea Daniel had been lying to you and the family. He told me you were aware of the plans and had agreed to move to senior living." I believed her. The shock on her face when I revealed Daniel's deception had been genuine. "How are Kyle and Emma?" I asked, more concerned about my grandchildren than assigning blame. "They are confused and upset," she admitted. "Daniel has not been himself. He barely leaves his office when he is home. I think he is ashamed, but does not know how to make things right." "And your financial situation?" I asked cautiously. Natalie sighed. "It is bad. Worse than I knew until recently. Daniel made some high-risk investments without fully consulting me, and when they failed, he tried to recover by making even riskier ones. We may need to sell our house and downsize significantly." Though I was still hurt by their willingness to appropriate my home, I felt sympathy for their situation. Financial stress can drive people to desperate actions, and Daniel had always defined himself by his ability to provide for his family. "The children can visit any time," I told Natalie. "This situation is between Daniel and me. They should not suffer for it." The following weekend, Natalie brought Kyle and Emma to see me at the new house. Without Daniel present, the visit was more relaxed, though tinged with the awareness of the family conflict. "I love the room you made for us, Grandma," Emma said as she explored the bedroom with the twin beds. "And the backyard is awesome," Kyle added, though I could see the strain of loyalty conflicts behind his smile. After they left, I sat in my reading nook, reflecting on the complexity of family relationships. The betrayal still hurt, but I was beginning to understand the desperation that had driven Daniel to such deception. Understanding did not excuse his actions, but it helped me process my feelings about them. During this time, I focused on establishing my new life. I joined a local gardening club where I met several neighbors who became friends. I volunteered at the library 2 afternoons a week, keeping my teaching skills sharp by helping with the children's reading program. I hosted small gatherings for Jessica and Michael's families, gradually filling the house with positive memories to replace the tainted ones. I also established clear financial boundaries with all my children. With Robert's help, I created a living trust that specified exactly how my assets would be managed if I became unable to do so myself. I named Jessica as my financial power of attorney, with Michael as backup. I shared these documents with all 3 children, making my wishes and expectations crystal clear. A month after the confrontation, Daniel finally reached out. His email was brief but sincere. "Mom, I am sorry for what I did. I betrayed your trust and tried to control your life in ways I had no right to do. I was desperate and made terrible choices. I understand if you cannot forgive me, but I miss you and want to make amends if possible." Daniel, I took several days to consider my response. The hurt was still raw, but he was my son, and I believed in the possibility of redemption and healing. We agreed to meet at a neutral location, a coffee shop, halfway between our homes. When Daniel arrived, I barely recognized him. He had lost weight and deep lines of stress marked his face. He looked older and defeated. "Thank you for meeting me," he said, his voice subdued. "I am listening," I replied, neither warm nor cold. Daniel did not make excuses. He acknowledged his deception, the manipulation of his siblings, and the betrayal of my trust. He explained his financial situation more fully, the failed investments, the mounting debt, the fear of telling Natalie how bad things had become, the shame of failing as the family's financial expert. "I convinced myself I was doing what was best for everyone," he admitted, "that you would be happier in a smaller place with care available, that the family needed the equity in your properties more than you did. But that was just justification for my selfishness." I listened without interrupting, allowing him to fully explain himself. When he finished, I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "What you did was deeply hurtful, Daniel. You violated my autonomy and betrayed my trust. You tried to make me doubt my own competence. Those are not easy things to forgive." He nodded, accepting the criticism without defense. "But you are my son, and I love you," I continued. "I am willing to work toward rebuilding our relationship, but it will take time, and there will need to be clear boundaries and complete honesty moving forward." Relief flooded his face. "I will do whatever it takes, Mom. I promise. First, you need to be honest with Natalie and the children about your financial situation," I said. "No more secrets or half-truths." "I have been," he assured me. "It has been hard, but we are facing it together now. Second, I will help you with financial counseling, but I will not simply give you money to solve your problems. That would not help you in the long run." He nodded, accepting this condition. "And finally, you need to apologize to Jessica and Michael for manipulating them and lying about my cognitive health." This was the hardest condition for Daniel to accept. It meant admitting his deception to his siblings, who had always looked up to him as the responsible elder brother. But he agreed. Our reconciliation was slow and careful. Daniel attended financial counseling and worked with a debt management company to create a sustainable plan. He and Natalie sold their house and moved to a smaller one, a difficult but necessary step. He apologized to his siblings in a painful but healing family meeting. Gradually, Daniel began to visit my new house, no longer seeing it as a property to claim, but as the symbol of my independence that it was. He helped with maintenance tasks and yard work, offering his labor rather than trying to control my decisions. During the holidays, 6 months after the confrontation, I hosted the entire family at my house for the first time. As I looked around the dinner table at my children and grandchildren, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the painful but necessary growth we had experienced. The house had become truly mine through defending it. What began as a secret purchase and then became the site of betrayal had transformed into a home filled with honest relationships and clear boundaries. The sage green walls that Natalie had once criticized now welcomed her and her family. The bedroom I had prepared for the grandchildren fulfilled its purpose as Kyle and Emma spent weekends with me. Through this difficult journey, I had learned valuable lessons about independence, boundaries, and forgiveness. I had discovered strength I did not know I possessed, and the courage to stand up for myself, even against those I loved most. My house, my beautiful craftsman home, had become more than just a building. It was the physical manifestation of my autonomy and the setting for a new chapter in our family story, one written with painful honesty, but also with hope for healing. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to make decisions for you? Leave a comment below, sharing your experience or what you would have done in my situation. Remember to like this video if you believe in respecting the independence of older family members. Subscribe for more real-life stories and share with someone who might need encouragement to set healthy boundaries. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that it is never too late to stand up for yourself and your choices.